I guess Lisa's going to get that big suite again.
I mean, I can't even get an invite. So she gets the suite. Byron gets like the janitor's closet. It's very interesting.
I'll be in the parking lot this year.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions and trends, whether you're in the real estate portal business, you're a real estate agent, you're in title, mortgage, whatever it is, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinati and Byron Lazine, but more importantly, we've got Damian Eales here, CEO of Realtor.com. Damian, thank you for the time. First and foremost, very grateful to have you on.
No problem. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
For sure. And we wanted to lead off here that kind of a disclaimer that Byron, Lisa, myself, we all do business with Realtor.com. We're partners with Realtor.com in various capacities. Damian has not looked at any of these questions, which I think is awesome. That's really how to deliver an authentic, real view on what's going on in the real estate industry. We're big supporters of Realtor.com. And we're also going to ask questions that are on our mind here. And we just want to thank you for coming on and being open-minded to that first and foremost, because not everyone is. So that's really awesome on your part. It says a lot about you as a leader within the real estate space.
100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I want to add that, like I've said very publicly before, I am a huge supporter of Realtor.com. What you're doing for the company and the things that you stand for within the lead generation space means the world to all of us.
Yeah, I will, I guess, triple down on all of that. I've said I appreciate the way the Realtor.com partnership treats their partners. I think it's exceptional. At the same time, this is going to be an open discussion. It's like, you get around, a holiday gathering, Thanksgiving or something like that over here in the U.S., Damian. I know you're aware of Thanksgiving. And you got some cousins that you might not agree with, some aunts and uncles, and you agree and you love each other, but you don't agree on everything. That's how this podcast should be. We're not journalists or anything like that. We're actually Realtor.com partners. We see a lot of things in alignment. And then there's other things. Obviously, if you listen to the pod after Damian's op-ed, and we're going to get into all of that stuff, there was areas that we were critical of. And I really do appreciate you coming in here without canned questions. I think we can be critical in areas, have a discussion. We encourage you to push back on us and help everybody in the industry grow, help agents of change think about things differently. And that's what we're here to do today.
Sure. No, well, look, as I said, I appreciate the opportunity and I work in a journalism company and I have worked for News Corp for many years. So we celebrate a diversity of opinions. I'm happy to compete in the competition of ideas. We won't always agree, but I'd much prefer to get out there and address the criticisms. I've listened to your previous podcasts, so I'm well aware of your opinions. That's fine. I'm happy to debate it. I think that's what it's all about. It's a competition of ideas. So thank you for all of the nice remarks. Now bring it on. Come on.
Yes.
All right.
There we go.
Love it. That's what we're talking about. Welcome to Knowledge Brokers. Very cool. So let's talk about the op-ed piece. That was one of the first things I had on my agenda here that I wanted to ask about. So in the New York Times op-ed, there was a couple quotes here, and I just wanted to hear what you mean by this. So you said in the op-ed piece, the settlement is a positive development, meaning the NAR settlement. It could lower real estate agent commissions, benefiting home buyers. And you went on to say these policies should put downward pressure on commission prices, currently averaging 5.3% and are split. You've heard our opinions. What did you mean by all this?
Well, first of all, it was in the Wall Street Journal, not the New York Times.
Oh, that's my bad. We'll have to edit that out. There you go.
But
yes, Wall Street Journal.
But look, first and foremost, why did I write the op-ed in the first instance? And I think the reason is that there's been really few positive stories advocating for this profession. And I want to be clear that op-ed was advocating for the profession first and foremost, and in particular, advocating for buyer agency. I mentioned the point, that this is a competition of ideas. I think that we all compete in a competition of ideas with a lot of thought leaders and regulators and policymakers and lawmakers who are looking very closely at the industry that we operate in, and I wanted to draw attention to the issue of buyer agency, and that in their desire to lower the cost of home buying and selling, that those regulators may throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so I wanted to draw attention to the implications of that. And quite frankly, the other objective is that there has been a lot of misinformation in comparing the US market to the Australian market. And for those listening who don't know me, you may have figured out that via my accent that I'm Australian. So I feel like I've got some authority, I suppose, having worked in both markets and certainly transacted in the Australian market, that when that misinformation occurs, then I've got an opportunity to address it. So, to your specific question of why did I say that there will be downward pressure on commissions, first and foremost, I said there should be. I don't know if there will be. There could be. There should be, is what I said in that article. Certainly, the design of that settlement by antitrust lawyers, and obviously taking feedback, let's say, from the Department of Justice, was to put downward pressure on commissions. So we might just say at the outset that if that settlement is not successful, then the work of the DOJ is not done in this area. But it could, or it should, I'm not sure. I think it could and it should. In some respects, self-evidently, commissions have been declining in the US for many years. In fact, in that article, I point out that in the 90s, when buyer agency didn't really exist, certainly not in a mainstream sense, commissions were over 6%. Now they're closer to 5%. And one of the reasons why commissions have been declining is because the market has become more competitive and discount brokerages have become more prominent. So first and foremost, it's self-evident that in a more competitive environment, commissions are going to come down. I also think that the publicity surrounding this case is going to cause more questioning of the general public as to the commission that they're paying. I think that that's been to some extent the intent of the administration. We did a survey recently that demonstrated that almost 40%, I think, maybe it's closer to 35% of the American population is aware of the antitrust cases. And I don't think you can underestimate the impact that that's going to have on conversations when people are signing up for a buyer brokerage agreement in the future, or indeed when people are listing, their home. The final thing that I'd say, though, is that in our own discussion with realtors, we're hearing different things. From some, we're hearing a really positive outcome, that they're having more professional conversations with buyers at the front of a transaction. They're selling their benefit better, and they're signing good buyer agency agreements with healthy, competitive commissions. But we're also seeing some listing agents who are contemplating reducing their commission and having buyer agents submit their offer that includes their buyer agent commission. So we think that as those models develop, that could also result in downward pressure on commissions. But the point of the article, the point of the op-ed, was not really that. It was to say, if you really want to go further as a society and approximate the commission levels that are being quoted in Australia, in the UK, and elsewhere, then really the way that you've got to do it is by gutting consumer protection through the elimination of buyer agency. And the point of that article was to say that would be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and it would be undoing the great accomplishments of consumer advocates, actually, in the United States that really got two agents representation on both sides of the transaction for the price of one, if you go back to the 90s. Sorry for that long-winded response, but
no, that was great. I think we all appreciate the details as well as the listeners. Of course, Damian Eales, CEO, Realtor.com. I want to just follow up here on a couple of the points about the downward pressure. To your point, you said in the op-ed should put downward pressure on commission prices, which currently average 5.3%. Is it your opinion that the average commission, just your personal opinion, at 5.3%, which has been coming down for 2 decades, there's been downward pressure from a variety of different angles on commission over the last 2 decades. Is it your personal opinion that 5.3% average commission is too high?
I don't have a perspective. I mean, it's a competitive market, so this is my perspective. It should be a competitive market. It has been a competitive market, obviously, as well. Commissions have been negotiable prior to this point, but they will be negotiated to a greater extent, we think, in the future. So we're supportive of a competitive market, but we're also advocates for the professionalism of the industry, both on the listing side and the buying side. And so long as it is a fair price and consumers, both on the buy side and the sell side, get independent representation, the market will determine what a reasonable commission is.
And then just the second part of that, if what you state here is a likely outcome, should, could, I get that downward pressure. If that were to just come, and downward pressure is maybe, whatever you want to call it. Tom referenced, hey, 6 down to 5.3. Maybe it's something similar to that respect. What would that do to Realtor.com's profit margin? How would you have to think about your partnerships? Is that going to reflect, how would that reflect your partnerships, and how would that reflect the health of, Realtor.com's balance sheet if their partners have this significant downward pressure on commissions?
Well, there's a couple of parts to that answer. In the first instance, we think that the settlement was a good outcome for the industry insofar as that settlement could have gone a lot further.
Okay.
And it would not have been a good outcome for American consumers, we believe, nor for realtors, nor for Realtor.com, had it gone so far as to say that listing agents could not, in the first instance, that sellers could not remunerate listing agents who could not remunerate a buying agent for the enormously valuable service of both finding and partner, working with the buyer through the transaction. So we think it's good in that respect, and long may that continue, which again is part of the reason for that op-ed. We think under that circumstance, there could be downward pressure on commissions, but we don't believe that it will have a significant impact on our revenue model. One of the reasons for that is that we think what will occur, or to some extent what we're already seeing, is that there will be some form of consolidation in the industry. I think that there will be more professional brokers, agents, actually perhaps particularly teams, that will be better at providing services to their consumers. We think we benefit actually out of that. I mean, you three guys on this call are an example of large customers that we have where we do great business together and we partner together. I think that the side hustle of realtors that exists will be less so. We do better with bigger, larger scale relationships. We think that will also create more competition, I might add, and consolidation in markets. By the way, this is another reason why there could be downward pressure on commissions, because as realtors consolidate, you get greater efficiencies, and in a competitive market, efficiencies are often passed through to the consumer.
Lisa, did you want to follow up? You look like you're about to.
No,
You look more energetic than you did last night at the Celtics game. So go ahead and follow up.
That was
Horrible
past my
game, that's why.
bedtime. Yeah, and bad game. No, look, I've been a crazy supporter saying, I agree, Damian. I think in a lot of ways, what can come out of this as a positive is a much better consumer experience. I 1,000% agree that teams, particularly the large ones, are set up in a way that will enable them to respond and adapt in a way that a traditional solo agent can't, nor can the big box brokerages. I've been saying over and over, I think that there's certain segments and pockets where things are going to potentially shake out pretty well, right? I think some of it is going to come down to the demographic of the buyers. I think some of it is, and i.e. the market, right? I think that those lower end markets where, we're talking about much lower first time buyer purchase prices, say under 300,000, I think that they face a unique set of challenges. I think at the luxury end above, say 2.5 million, I think that they're going to face challenges as well. But I think in kind of that middle part, say above 400,000 and below 2 million, I think that there's the opportunity to do really great things. And I think you're spot on with that. I've said it very loudly, very publicly. So I'm in full agreement.
I mean, just to add, we don't know as well. So we're all going into uncharted territory. But I'd just start at the original position. That those who have designed this settlement or influenced the settlement have done so with the intent of increasing transparency, perhaps increasing professionalism, and reducing commissions. I don't think that necessarily has to be a bad thing for successful teams. I think it could be a great thing for successful teams. I think that they may gain market share and become a better business as an outcome. But if commissions don't decrease, then I can only assume, based on the executive order of President Biden, that the job will not be considered to have been done. I think that on that basis, we should work with the grain on this one and work out how, as an industry, we can contribute to delivering better services to consumers in a more efficient way.
Would you have added anything differently in that op-ed if you had a chance to rewrite it?
Not really. I mean, you guys criticised me for being too short, and I think you said sloppy, and as it was written on a plane or somewhere or a train station.
Yeah, I'll clarify. I mean, I thought there could have been a much deeper approach into articulating what a buyer agent does and the advocacy around that. I mean, if you went through the comments, it was over 1,000 comments on the Wall Street Journal. They weren't good. And, you can always say, well, people commenting are, this, that, and the other thing. Well, people that are subscribing to the Wall Street Journal are paying $39 a month, to leave those comments. So it's not like a Twitter X troll. I mean, people in the comments do troll. I get it, but they're paying $39 a month.
Sure.
So, I would certainly say we'd want to listen to that feedback, because that's the audience of Realtor.com. It's the audience of a real estate broker or team leader. And so I thought I thought you could have gone deeper or reach out to somebody like Lisa Chinati, for example, and get her opinion on, maybe a direction that you could go. So that's clarifying that. So, but it sounds like you wouldn't have changed anything there.
No, I mean, look, just to respond to a couple of points. First of all, in terms of, you do get word limits on op-eds. You don't get,
I've never been invited to write one. So
and that's the root of the saltiness.
Problem.
You do get word limits, but actually, it wasn't. I reflect when you mentioned it to me. I thought, I'll just go back and grab the paper, the actual physical copy, the old-fashioned physical copy of the paper, just to take a look at how many column inches I got in the old-fashioned term. And I noticed that I basically got the same column inches as the op-ed author who was above me on that page. So that was President Biden. And I thought, well, if I'm being given about the same space as the President of the United States, then I was pretty satisfied that I had my fair share. The other thing I would say, though, is that I did actually socialise it. Apologies, Lisa, I didn't socialise it with you, but I did socialise it with a number of realtors and got their opinion. Actually, in fairness, one of them did point out the fact that a similar thing to what you guys have said, which is, you're accepting the fact that commissions may come down. And, my response to that was, fair enough. But from my perspective, that is what these changes have been designed to do. So let's assume that those who constructed it may actually create a more competitive environment, and those commissions may well come down. But to answer your question, Byron, no, I wouldn't change anything of that article, nor would I change anything of the buyer agent advocacy campaign that we're running at the moment. We think that we're Robinson Crusoe on this. We're the only ones who are running any advertising which is influencing to some extent consumers. But that full page ad, and I know that less and less people are reading newspapers, but a very important group of people are still reading those newspapers. And that ad ran earlier this week in the Washington Post, in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal. And I do want policymakers and lawmakers to understand those 111 points. And yes, it is fine print. I designed that to be fine print because I want to make the point. I want people to. I don't expect people to read 111 points, by the way, but it is a valuable read. But the real point I'm trying to make is that the work of an independent buyer agent is extraordinary, broad, and highly valuable. And you can do it all yourself, or indeed you can make one really smart decision, and that's to appoint a buyer agent on your behalf.
Great. All right, I'll get off the op-ed. I know we want to go another direction.
Sure.
And to be let's be fair here. I know in quarter four, it was from your direction. Hey, we're going to use our News Corp partners to support you guys, realtors and Realtor.com partners. You did an op-ed in Wall Street Journal, I believe, in December. This one in April. I'd love to see, obviously, more. I always love seeing more, but it sounds like that's the ambition here, is to do more moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, leveraging. And by the way, we're about to submit an op-ed to another news organisation. I don't think we should just be limited to News Corp publications. We at the NAR conference earlier this week, I encouraged leaders, not just the NAR, but I'm referring to leaders in the industry, to do a lot more to advocate for buyer agency in their own community. I think that, to be honest, if in referring to that competition of ideas, I think that as an industry, we've lost a lot of points. Actually, I was going to address this before, but you mentioned the comments on my op-ed. I read a lot of comments on a lot of articles in this industry, not in the bubble of our industry publications, but in those articles that are written in the mainstream media. And there is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of negativity towards the industry, and all the more reason why we need to do more advocacy in public spaces outside of the bubble of the industry. So, look, we've started. We're going to do a lot more. But on News Corp, Byron, it's a lot more than asking for the opportunity to write a letter to the editor or an op-ed. We are doing a lot from a promotional perspective, and we are doing a lot from a content sharing perspective. Fundamentally, we're a journalistic organisation, so there are a lot of articles that get written that divert traffic into Realtor.com and promote the brand of Realtors as an authoritative brand when it comes to buying or selling a home, and that's how we leverage News Corp more broadly.
And I think we've all seen that working. I know the three of us were chatting beforehand, and I've said behind the scenes, and I think publicly, that one of the things that you've done really well is leveraging that, where I've seen my estimates. I just did some renewals with Realtor.com, and my lead estimates have actually gone up, where my lead estimates from not to be named source have actually gone down in the same time period. So I know that you've been working hard on that. I know that you spoke about it quite a bit at the last Thrive event for your largest partners. And so again, public kudos for what you've done there to leverage that in that way.
I guess Lisa's going to get that big suite again.
I mean, I can't even get an invite. So she gets the suite. Byron gets like the janitor's closet. It's very interesting.
I'll be in the parking lot this year. But
well, Tom, you just need to give me some more compliments on air, and
that's tall order for someone like me, Damian. All kidding aside,
we'll be peeking over the gate. Tom, you had mentioned the Rich Barton tweet.
Yeah, I was curious about this because, I mean, we'll call it what it is. Zillow and Realtor.com, I view them as competitors. And 100%. After you put the op-ed out, Rich Barton, I actually pulled the tweet up here. Rich Barton decided to dust off his Twitter account after months of inactivity. And the tweet basically said, "We founded Zillow to turn on the lights for regular consumers in the real estate industry. There's a great deal of conversation happening right now about how the industry should evolve further." And they have this bill of the real estate rights for consumers that they've put out there. And he said he's highlighting this now because of your op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. That was, you don't often see this happen where someone comes over. I mean, and so I interpreted that maybe a little differently than other people. What did you think of the tweet? Like, was this a good thing, a bad thing? Tell us more.
Well, in fairness to Zillow, they have, Rich himself has been publicly advocating for buyer agency in his earnings calls, I guess since I can remember, actually. During the time that I've been in this role, I've noted that. And I think that they published that, I think you called it a Bill of Rights, but I think that they published that, I don't know, maybe 3 or 6 months ago. So that's been out there for some time. So in fairness, you've got to give credit where it's due. He's been advocating for buyer agency for some time. And he's also made a really important point that had the industry switched to a pure listing model similar to Australia, then they have a very strong advantage in that sense because they've genuinely got a very large audience. I would say, I do think there are instances in business, though, where the industry should come together, particularly when it's in support of the consumer. And so I thanked Rich Barton for amplifying that message. I think it was a good example of where industry solidarity can work if it's for the benefit of advocating for consumer protections. And I think that, we need to remind Americans that buyer agency was a hard-fought consumer advocacy win that occurred in the 90s. And I think that that's been lost in this conversation. So well done to Rich. Now, having said that, He is my number one competitor without any shadow of a doubt, and I don't resile from anything that I've said historically in terms of the fact that we were number one. Zillow took that position off us from an audience perspective, and we want to take it back. So, we compete with them fiercely in all other areas. We did do a recent deal in rentals. We did that on the basis that Zillow are clearly on the ascendancy in terms of audience in the rentals space. They now beat apartments.com, yet they don't have the same revenue share. And we felt that there was a lot that we could gain by partnering with them. We have not had historically a large rentals business. So rather than divert scarce resources to building a rentals business, I'd prefer to put all of those dollars into building our buy-sell capabilities for the realtors that we serve and that we can serve better today, because we know that we have a lot of advocacy from our customers. I've heard some of that on this call today, and we're convinced that if we can do a better job of growing our high-intent audience and by improving our customer propositions and services and capabilities, then we will gain market share. So that's where we're focused.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into some of the portal traffic. I think that's everybody's curious about that. Zillow has three main positions on advocacy. One of them being they are against dual agency. They are, they say it over and over and over again. Rich said it recently. Again, they are for solo representation. So Zillow is not for dual agency. They have a conflicting product with the showing time sending direct leads to listing agents that I think conflicts with that position. Homes hasn't articulated clearly whether they are against dual agency or for it. They certainly are with this your listing, your lead model. You would think for dual agency, just the way that works out. What's your position? What's Realtor.com's position on dual agency?
Well, first and foremost, let's start with independent buyer agency. We are very pro independent buyer agency because we think that that's the best outcome for consumers, and we think that it should be we think that we've got a job to do to promote why that's a benefit for consumers. We don't have a position on dual agency except to say that so long as consumers were well aware that they were being represented by the same agent that is representing the seller, providing that was well disclosed, then we also think that consumers should have a choice to do what they choose to do. There are obviously conflicts and negatives that need to be considered in terms of dual agency, which is why it's outlawed in 8 states of America. So, our view is that we will work within the laws of those states and the country and this country. We will promote the benefit of independent buyer agency, but that is not to say that consumers shouldn't have choice to do business how they see fit.
Okay, good. All right. I know we're going to have, we've got a certain amount of time left here. I definitely want to get into the NAR alignment, some of the portal stuff. Lisa, which direction you want to take it first?
I like portals because I think that that's a big one that's been on most people's minds as they get the solicitations and kind of look at it. And I think one of my favorite comments that you've ever put out, Damian, is that Realtor.com wants to be number one with no tricks. So would love to kind of hear your take on that and what that means for you, for Realtor.com, and maybe even for your customers.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of confusion in the market.
I agree.
Simply because of what we consider to be an incredibly misleading and deceptive advertising campaign by Homes.com, CoStar. All we ask for is an apples with apples comparison. And effectively, this is a really important point. We want we don't lead with audience in terms of all of you guys have seen our B2B marketing. We don't lead with audience. We talk a lot about quality of leads. We talk about the services that we provide on the buy and the sell side. The reason that we don't lead with audience is because audience is important because it's an input. But what you really want from us is a high quality lead or a listing. And so we're very focused on that front. But the homes.com model is not only selling your listing, your lead, but they are increasingly talking about the advertising benefit, the branding benefit. So I've been a buyer of advertising for many, many years before I joined News Corp. And I've been a seller of advertising and branding for many, many years since I've joined News Corp. And as a buyer, you need to know that the audience that you're buying is a legitimate audience. And all we would argue, very, very simply, is that when homes.com runs ads, and I'm sure that they're still running right now on Inman and other publications, and they say as a headline that they have an audience of homes.com of 156 million, and they have pixelated fine print, which I'll come to in a minute. Seriously pixelated. You should look at it yourself. Don't take my word for it. That you should expect, if you're buying a subscription to that service for branding to those eyeballs, that you should get what you paid for. Now, that pixelated fine print references a number of different networks that are included in homes.com, but you really have to go to their investor presentations to understand that included in the 156 million audience is actually 17 separate websites.
Like this would be landandfarm.com and some of the other holdings.
You got it. Exactly.
Yeah.
University apartments, I think, or something or another, and apartment home living and for rent university. It's a whole bunch of different things. Mm-hmm. I think actually in one of their investor presentations back at the start of the year, they spoke about also including a UK website into that network, residential network number, but they've now removed that. But 17 different URLs. Well, I'd encourage, your listeners and viewers who subscribe to homes.com to just go and visit those URLs that are included and look for your branding. So that's all I'd ask. And ask the question if you're getting value for money. So that's point number one. You shouldn't include 17 URLs when you're saying it's homes.com and when you're comparing it to one URL, realtor.com. Now, the second thing I would say is that as a buyer of media and as a seller of media, of advertising, people use independent currencies. There's not a media buying agency in the world who would take your own internal data, be that Google Analytics or Adobe, because you can configure those, as you all know, you can configure that reporting mechanism to tell you what you want. You would use an independent currency. In the United States market, and I think the market for advertising is some $300 billion, ComScore is used. Now, News Corp reported the ComScore number for Realtor.com. Redfin reports a ComScore number, and now Zillow is reporting their ComScore number. So why should, if you're a Ford Motor Car company, if you're buying media, you'll ask your media agency to rely on an independent metric. Why shouldn't a real estate agent who's buying a subscription for advertising and branding not have that same benefit? So all we would call on CoStar to do is just be transparent. Don't misdirect to all of these other websites. Just compare homes.com to whoever else you want to, using a like-for-like currency and a like-for-like methodology, and that is ComScore in that market. And you know what? They're number 4 on ComScore, by the way. That's why they don't want to use ComScore, and they're and they went backwards last month despite all this spend. But you know what? They do have deep pockets, as you've pointed out on a number of occasions, Byron, and they may well keep spending for many years to come, and they may beat Realtor.com, at which point I'll congratulate them. But until that point, they should use ComScore, the independent metric that's used in the industry. The problem that they've got, though, is that they don't have a lot of organic traffic coming through. And the last time I looked at SEM Rush, I think that their share of organic SEO traffic it's sub 1%. So they've got challenges to achieve that branding benefit.
I think all the sub 1% is the agents who are going to look for their branding as they visit the website.
Well, I mean, the numbers, with the amount of investment that Homes.com makes on obviously getting numbers up. I end up on Homes.com every single day when I open the YouTube app just by accidentally clicking. So it's a 1 second hit and I bail out. You've been in the advertising world a lot longer than me. It's me landing on Homes.com on YouTube, and this probably happens to consumers all the time, and bailing out for a second because I wasn't really trying to go there. They're using Google Analytics. You're using ComScore. You guys are in a debate on which one is better.
No. Just to correct you there. They're using Google Analytics. We use Adobe Analytics. And Zillow uses a combination of both. I'm not too sure but they're internal metrics. I mean, you can configure Google Analytics to count bots. We don't, because it would be useless. All I'm saying is, for a comparison, if you're comparing two different websites, you should, or if you're buying media, you should use an independent comparable metric. You shouldn't compare apples with oranges. That's all I'm saying. They can quote their internal numbers. They just shouldn't compare two numbers from two different methodologies using two different measurement systems. They should use ComScore, the same measure that all media buyers use in this country.
There was a spokesperson from Homes recently quoted in Inman calling you defamatory and frankly desperate. What's your response to that?
The best defense is truth. And we'll keep on articulating the truth of the matter.
Do you think there's any value of taking ComScore, Google Analytics, the Adobe, like putting out all, should I guess you put out, they put out, they're advertising, all over the place right now, these Google Analytic numbers, they actually use it in graphics. Would you put out a piece that shows the difference between all three? You're talking about the ComScore.
Potentially, perhaps. Certainly we're encouraging media organisations in the industry to cover it, to ask questions. The fact that you guys are entertaining this conversation, I think, is a real positive. ComScore is readily available. It's an independent metric. It's apples with apples. Comparing Google Analytics numbers to somebody else's Google Analytics numbers to somebody else's Adobe numbers is apples with oranges. It's absolutely as simple as that. And secondly, just let me reiterate, you should compare Homes.com with Realtor.com on ComScore. Look, Homes.com will say, but we need to include Apartments.com because you guys have got rentals and we refer all of this traffic across. Just go onto SEM Rush and check out how much traffic Apartments.com sends to Homes.com. The answer is less than half of 1%. So, I guess in the whole buying a home process, it's buyer beware. I would beware of whether or not you're getting the audience that you asked for. I encourage you to go to all of those URLs and find your brand and your listings. That's all. And then
and that'd be an impression play, certainly, if that's what you're focused on.
But isn't that what they're selling?
Well, that's that. If you're talking about branding, that's just an impression, right? And so I would agree with you there. There's 200 million leads, online leads generated, and there's only going to be 4 million, give or take, transactions here this year. One thing we'll all agree here, the four of us will agree, is that Realtor.com generates a very highly qualified lead. So the ability for an agent to be profitable on that partnership is at the highest of anything that's available right now. You can buy leads not just from the major portals, but all kinds of smaller ones and startups and all of this. And there's no question you guys are actually doing a good job vetting out the leads and getting a highly qualified lead to visit the site. So
I appreciate hearing that.
We've got a little bit of time left. Let's go to NAR. See,
Sure.
Lisa, how I got a little brown on my nose there too.
I appreciate the brown.
I want to increase my chances of
getting the
bigger room.
So I'm actually, I'm going to just jump in. I'm actually pretty sympathetic to what Damian's talking about, because we've all been through this with agents that inflate their numbers and make things up, and they're not using the same apples to apples comparison. And ultimately it hurts the consumer, whether, his consumer may be real estate agents looking to buy leads or feed their business. The things that come out of people's mouth in a competitive situation is pretty frustrating, and it's plagued in our industry. So I hear where you're coming from on this, and I do like the apples to apples comparison. That's just a smart business move.
And thank you for that, Tom. And I mean, why do you tell investors but you won't tell your customers? I just think it's disrespectful. And I've
been in those conversations. I mean, literally, like, hey, we sold all these homes. Well, hey, here's the list of homes this person's actually sold. And I've won business that way. Some people don't like it, but at least I know I'm trying to help the person on the other side of the table. So I've really been in that situation. And I think it is, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I sent a screenshot to Byron and the team here of the ad. It was on one of the things we want to talk about here next with NAR. I mean, you can't read that fine print. I mean, I have bad eyesight, but I blew it up and I still couldn't see it.
No.
Damian, if it ever gets to the point where, you guys are going to debate, maybe you, Andy, if there's going to be a debate, just don't do it, with a stale brand behind a paywall. Come to BAM, we'll blow the thing up. There'll be more agent team leader eyeballs across the country if you're ever up for that debate. But let's go to some of this NAR stuff.
I've got it ready here, Byron. So
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So Damian, you recently spoke at the MLS Forum of Realtors legislative meetings, and you had said that NAR and MLS, they're going to need to deliver more to remain relevant. And in your discussions with them, you have never felt more aligned. You know how we feel about NAR. I'd love to hear why you feel aligned with NAR and the MLSs. I think that I want to get the reasoning behind this. I think that's really, really interesting to hear right now.
Well, fundamentally, first and foremost, we are by and for the industry. We were created 28 years ago, and it's worth just reflecting on this, because I don't think the industry understands the history as much as I've sometimes, or at least some people don't fully understand it. But we were created to ensure that in this market, listings are free and ubiquitous. And this is a very unique market where realtors and sellers, listing agents and sellers, don't have to pay to be seen, except if you're paying for that 156 million audience at homes.com, I suppose. But you don't have to be paid to be seen. So first and foremost, the relationship that we have with the MLSs and the National Association of Realtors, by which we share a name,
which is the same thing, MLSs and NAR. But go ahead.
Yeah. But is important for ensuring that in this market listings remain free and ubiquitous. So it's important that we are aligned. I say that we're particularly aligned now because the industry has been going through a very difficult period, and our interests are very aligned insofar as we want more professional realtors. We want them to be, we want to eliminate as much confusion as possible from a market that is confused right now. We want to ensure that realtors are more professional in how they execute. So, ensuring that one of the things that, we think a lot about at the moment is how do we ensure that we're giving our leads to the right realtors who are the most professional. Again, why I see us doing more business with more successful teams in the future, where we're assured that it's a terrific relationship with the consumer. So I think that, and also when you go through difficult times, it's important that we all pile in and support one another so that we can best come out of it and serve consumers well.
You've been in the media business, the ad buying business. You've been, you've worked CMO roles throughout your career. So there's nobody better to ask about advertising and delivering a message to a consumer in this space potentially than you. When you look at how NAR spends dollars on, the We Are the We Are Better campaign, they have 5 seasons on Hulu. They bought space for that. Have they spent dues dollars wisely when it comes to delivering advertising and marketing messages to consumers?
Look, I'm not going to comment about their specific campaigns, and to be honest, I'm aware of that series, but I haven't looked at the audience numbers that they've achieved as an outcome of that investment. So I would be commenting about something that I'm not well informed of. But regardless of what they've done, I think that given that we share a brand, we are very open. We're talking to them right now. We're very open to looking forward to doing more together to promote the value of being a realtor, of being a member of the NAR indeed, and of becoming more professional in how we deliver services to consumers.
Well, I mean, maybe not the Hulu series, but you would be aware of the We Are Our campaign that, has been going on 5 years, 50 million a pop, so 250 million now in 5 years. Do you like that campaign?
Look, I think it's good creative. I don't know how it's been distributed. I don't know how successful it's been. So I can talk about the metrics that we look at in terms of our campaigns. We think that our buyer agent advocacy campaign, the fact that 400 different brands throughout the United States have co-branded that now with us and are distributing it in their own communities, we think that's been successful. But I don't know enough to comment on the success of the NAR campaigns.
How do you look at a campaign being successful or unsuccessful?
A few different ways. I mean, in the first instance, to what extent have you actually got in front of the eyeballs that you're interested in influencing, and then measuring changes to brand perception, if that is your objective. That is an objective of ours in many instances. We want to be seen as the most trusted. We leverage the fact that we are the most trusted by real estate professionals, but we think that if we can change the perception, or increase, I should say, the perception of our consumers so that they think, well, this is where the pros go, so this is where I should go to find out information about real estate. That's the type of thing that we measure. But we also measure in terms of audience performance. A lot of our campaigns are consumer facing to drive a high intent audience. And we can really clearly map our investment to the audience that we generate. And we spend a lot of time determining, if we think that we're generating an audience that is not delivering sufficient leads, if it's a low intent audience, or what you might call a high calorie audience, it might taste good in the short term, but it does no good for your business in the long term. One of our competitors, as you might imagine, has a lot of high calorie audience. We are very focused, because that ends up generating terrible leads. and I'm delighted that you guys have referenced the quality of our leads. I think if we were to start delivering poor quality leads off the back of a poor quality audience, then it's not good for our customers, and we just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, the quality's been exceptional. The agents on all three of our teams and throughout the country that are working with these clients and customers always talk about the quality being at the highest level. So, and you guys don't, overpromise, or you readjust if that traffic adjusts during that certain time frame. There's so many other things I think the three of us would love to ask you. So, one, we'd love to get you to commit here to doing a part two at some point with us, Damian.
At some point.
Okay, so we will do a part two. We can talk about totally different stuff.
Document it.
I mean, one interesting question. I don't know if you've got a couple minutes, if you can push the other thing. And I think in the part two, this is the direction we'd like to go. More stuff that could be tactical for the agent. How come none of the portals have ever solved? I know Homes is all about my list, your listing, your lead, and this kind of stuff. But how come there hasn't been a portal that's actually really generated consistent seller leads, listing leads? Everybody wants listings. But there hasn't been a portal to solve that problem. It's really been on the buy side historically.
It's a great question, actually. And having been in the role for 12 months, I've asked the same question. It's remarkable. I think, you know what? I think it's because fundamentally, historically, the industry has been a very product-centric business. We've been very focused on what's the new product that we launched, but we don't actually airing some of our dirty laundry that we're rapidly addressing. In fact, I think in many respects we've addressed it. But Lisa gave me some feedback quite vocally that I use regularly in our business. Lisa made the point to me, Damian, oftentimes in my office, I'll have two people on the phone to two people from Realtor.com talking about two almost conflicting conversations. You sell me products, but can you serve me better as a customer and serve all of my needs? And I genuinely think that if you want to ask what our customer strategy, fundamentally, it is that we are moving from a product-centric organisation to a customer-centric organisation. So if I've got a relationship with a customer, then I want to earn the right to all of their business, to serve them on both the buy and the sell side. I mean, I think that fundamentally, though, the insight that we have is that, obviously, brokers and teams will want the lead that comes from their listing, but what they really want is the next listing. So we are very, very focused on our listing toolkit product. We're close to being able to launch listing toolkit for teams. We're integrating with more CRMs so that it can be a more seamless process. And on the consumer side, we've put a lot of we purchased a company called UpNest. We've now rebranded that to Real Choice Selling, and we're doing more and more to generate new listings for our listing agents and teams that we serve.
You mentioned CRM. Zillow owns Follow Up Boss. Do you guys have an open relationship with Follow Up Boss? Do you think it'll be healthier in the future, or are you concerned about that?
We have a productive relationship with Follow Up Boss. I mean, in any business, you've got to be very clear-eyed about where you are going to invest to differentiate, and where alternatively you should partner with the others in the industry. We are going to be very, very competitive to deliver better services for consumers and for our customers in the areas where we think we can win and gain competitive advantage over time. In other areas, Follow Up Boss is used by many of our customers, and therefore, if we are going to serve our customers well, we're going to work well with Follow Up Boss. It's as simple as that.
I love it. I know we're tight on time, but I want to wrap up. My last acknowledgement is one of the things that I am super appreciative of that you do so well is recognizing that agents and team leaders and brokers are your customers, while the buyers and sellers are the audience. And that speaks very loudly, because I know I think one of the few within the industry across all the
Mhm.
portals and other platforms that actually recognizes that. So again, just a massive kudos from that. And I hope that our listeners actually picked up on that difference throughout everything that you've said from start to finish.
Well said.
Terrific. Well, thanks for the opportunity again,
Yeah,
guys.
we'll reach out for part 2. Don't worry.
I'm sure you will.
Damian, really appreciate it. Very
Thank you.
authentic. Thank you.
Thank you.
We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. Transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BAMX.